Hello everyone. So today we'll be doing on chapter 6 linear functions and graphs, and specifically on Cartesian coordinates. So in today's lesson, we're actually just going to learn more about the Cartesian coordinate system and how do we read coordinates as well as plotting points. So firstly, what is coordinates about? Let's say we have a chessboard over here. Alright, we have black pieces, white pieces, but in particular, I want to move this piece over here. But then, let's say if I do not have hands, alright, and then I want someone to help me move the piece. How do I identify this white pawn? Okay, you might say the fourth piece from the left, alright? Then you say that you move to up. However, is there a more specific way to go and identify this pawn? And that is when we have our coordinate system. So normally in our coordinate system, we have two different sets of values, right? We have a horizontal value, we call them the x-axis, and the vertical values, which we call them the y-axis. This is our reference point to identify points in this system, all right? In this case, this white pawn is assigned to the value of d according to the x-axis and the value of 2 in the y-axis. Alright, and this can be done by using a straight line and matching the value on the respective axis. And then this pawn would then be in position d2. Okay, now of course this is a very specific usage of coordinates. Are there any other systems that we use that's similar to coordinates in our real life? Alright, so maybe you might have heard of the cinema seating arrangement. Maybe you have seen before when our parents book tickets in the cinema. Alright, we also have a similar system where we have the alphabets A to J, and of course each of these columns represented by numbers as well. On top of that, if you learn in geography about the world map, you also realize there's something called the longitude and latitude. So there'll be a horizontal component as well as a vertical component. Alright, so using these, we are able to identify points along our world map. Is that clear, everyone? Alright, but in particular in math, we are going to learn something called the Cartesian coordinates. So on the Cartesian coordinates, which you can see on the left, we have our x-axis and our y-axis. They are like a number line that goes from negative numbers, 0, to your positive numbers. Okay. In Cartesian coordinates, we order them by two values. The first one being the x and the second one being the y. Okay, maybe I give you an example. Let's say we have a point over here in this whole map. How do we read this point? First, we look at our x-axis. As it comes first, we draw a straight line down to the x-axis and notice it hits the number 1. So it has an x value of 1. Next, we draw a horizontal line to the y-axis, right, and it hits the number 2. So it has a y value of 2. So then this point over here can be represented by the by this notation called bracket 1, 2, where the x value represented by the first number and the y value represented by the second number. Okay, what about this point over here? Okay, we can use it. Same thing, find the x value first. We draw a straight line up, we get -4, and we draw a horizontal line to the y-axis and we get -2. And then we can represent it by bracket -4, -2. Okay, pause this slide if you need time to register. Okay, moving on, let's look at our worksheet question from worksheet 6A or workbook page 101. So we have 4 points over here. Alright, pause the video to go and try the question out. Alright, identify the coordinates for each of these points A, C, E, and F. Okay, pause the video. Okay, now I'll go through the answers. So for point A, first you look at the x-axis and then the y-axis, and you realize that you have the x value of 5 and the y value of 2. So it can be represented by 5, 2. Okay, you can do the same for our C. The x value will go all the way up to the horizontal axis. We get -3, and we go horizontally to the vertical axis. Alright, our y-axis, and we get -5. So then our C will just be -3, -5. However, E and F are on the axis itself. So let's take a look at E first. E is on the y-axis. So if we draw a vertical line down to its x value, notice that it is just 0. Right? E itself is already on the y-axis. So then you just have a y value of 6. We call this 0, 6. And last one, F. F is on the x-axis. So it did have an x value of 1. But the y value, if we draw a horizontal line, is just 0. So then our coordinates for F will just be 1, 0. So essentially what you're doing is finding the x value and the y value of each point and then write it down as a bracket system, right? An ordered notation of x, y. Okay, now instead of finding the coordinates, we are now plotting the points for each of the coordinates. Okay, pause the video and try out the different points over here and then resume once you get a clearer idea. Alright, okay, let's do it together. So first we try to find A. A, we have an x value of -3 and a y value of 6. So we go to x value of -3 first and we go all the way up to the y value of 6, and that's how we get our point A. And then we mark a x to indicate the point. Okay, next, B. B have an x value of 4 over here, and then we go all the way up to a y value of 5. Right? So this point is our point B. Okay, next, point C is 0, 2. So it has an x value of 0. Where's the x value of 0? Right in the center here. And it has a y value of 2. So you go all the way up to the value of 2. This should be our C. Okay, D has an x value of 5. So we go our x value of 5 over here. And we go down to -1. Alright? And that we should get our point D over here. E has an x value of -4. So we go down to x value of -4. And we go further down to the y value of -5. And that's how we get our point E. And lastly, F, x value of -2. -2 over here, but the y value of 0. So just nice, it's already at 0. So our point F will just be over here. Alright, so this is the end of our video on Cartesian coordinates. Okay, now we'll use Cartesian coordinates to help out with our graphing further on in 6.2 and 6.3. Okay, see you in the next video.